So in this video, I'm going to talk with you some about glazing, and I'm going to run through our different types of paint. So the first kind of glaze that I'm going to talk with you about is for oil painters, but this is true for everybody. So I know this is a well-loved tube of Naphthol red, and on the back it's got some important information. So it says semi-opaque, meaning that this is not a particularly transparent color, but it's also not all the way opaque. The most opaque paint that you're going to have is your white paint. Your white paint is a crazy opacifier. If you need to blot something out or make it invisible, you can do a coat of white and then go over with another color, and it has the ability to really cover things. Coming up in one of our next lectures, we're going to talk about light fastness, so how well the pigment does when exposed to light. It's got information about what's actually in the paint, what the vehicle is, in this case refined walnut oil. So here I've laid down some colors so that we can talk about glazing. What glazing really is just a thin application of paint so that you're allowed to see through that transparent paint and have either some of the color underneath bounce through or a little bit of the white of the canvas. And this is particularly a sought after trait in oil paint because of the fact that it is so luminous. So here I have my solvent-free painting fluid by Gamblin. Sometimes it takes me a little bit to open it up. Now you should always do this on a flat surface, because what's going to happen is this is like legitimately just going to run down the surface, which is no good. But we're just doing it for you right now because we want to make this work. Okay, so note how I've added like 3 drops. I don't want to do too much because the instructions recommend that for this painting medium that we only use about 25% of the painting free or solvent free fluid compared to the paint. Alright, so I'm going to take this and I'm just going to mix it around. I'm going to start to get something that is nice and transparent. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to actually paint on top of some completely dry acrylic paint. Oil paint can always go on top of acrylic. Acrylic can never go on top of oil. It will actually just peel all the way off, which is, I think, pretty terrifying. Alright, so I'm taking a nice soft brush and I'm just scrubbing a little bit. And I'm going to take just a teeny bit more of this medium over on the side. And I'm just going to start to blend that out. And so you can see, let's bring it over onto some that doesn't have the yellow. But that is pretty opaque, pretty strong. Alright, and so if you would like that to be just a little bit more subtle, you can work in with a little bit more of your medium or a clean brush. Start to take a little bit of that up, and you can see that really beautiful kind of stained glass effect where we just have a little bit of that yellow glowing through. Now over the orange, I bet it's just going to make the color feel really rich. Yeah, look how dark that starts to become. So here I'm just going to see if I can get a nice gradation going for us. And then I'm going to switch to the less saturated brush. Come down like this. And so you can start to see how you could really kind of blend a color using this. Now let's talk about how we would get to like a nice neutral using some of that green. Look how much darker that is glazing over the top of that green. And we're just going to spread that out. Wow, look, that's so nice and rich. So with oil painting very often, or other kinds of glazing, oil painting when you're glazing or other types of painting, you're just wanting to build up color in nice thin layers so that you can have some of the luminous color coming from below. And what I don't want to do is just close up all the light, and so I'm just striving to keep a little bit of light even in my lighter areas, or especially in my lighter areas. So actually I realized that what I want to be able to show you also is going over a spectrum from light to dark. And so we can start glazing over that together because of the fact that you are going to create that light to dark spectrum in your underpaintings that you are creating for your still life. So you'll see I've got a pretty stiff brush and I'm just moving the pigment along. And this is going to be just even more amplified if I choose a paint from my set that has a really nice kind of full transparency. So just start checking out your tubes and see what you can find. So this is the second part of the demonstration using acrylic paint. So to create a glaze, we're just going to thin down our oil paint. I've got just a little bit of the Naphthol Crimson right there. So because I'm just working with this color, I'm going to take my brush and my water and I'm just going to start to spread it around like that. And so glazes are just meant to be layered up slowly and transparently. So let's see what it's like over the yellow. Alright, pretty lovely. I'll add just a little bit more water. See what that's like. So you really can get that nice kind of stained glass effect. And then in the case of the acrylic over the acrylic, it will dry really very quickly. So let's see what it does over that nice vivid orange. Lovely. And then if you want to darken up an area, you can add a little bit more pigment and just sort of blend out. Alright. And let's test it on the green. Wow, that makes such a nice dark kind of neutral. Just makes that red, I think, a little bit spicy. Alright, and let's try it down here on some of our grayscale. So you can see how that looks. So the color will really pop, but it will retain the values below. Let's go ahead and try just really quickly the blue. And so what I was wondering is, okay, are we going to optically mix to a purple, right, with that stained glass effect? Very, very dark. Let's try the lighter one. Okay, so this is an example of having too much water. And at this point, in my opinion, this is no longer a glaze, this is a wash. So I just got a little heavy-handed there, and if that happens to you, just dab it with a rag and you're gonna be just fine. You can go back over the top again. So you can see with the acrylic we get just a little bit more streaking, but that's, I mean, I think it can actually be really still very lovely to see some of the brush strokes, whereas the oil paints just lays down super nice and evenly. Now watercolorists, you're in a slightly different situation. What you're gonna do is your first coat of watercolor, you're gonna let that dry completely, and then you're gonna come in with a second coat, just right over the top, but you want it to dry completely before you put that next glaze over the top. Okay. Hope you have a wonderful time painting.